Welcome to our masterclass for the NUS Executive MBA in Mandarin. This class will really talk about how to capture value in our service economies. My name is Jochen Wirtz and I'm the Vice Dean of MBA programs at the NUS Business School, National University of Singapore, and I'm also a professor of marketing here, and I teach the course on service for the NUS Executive MBA in Mandarin. Now, today I really want to focus on three key topics. The first one is the micro story on how you as an individual business can make money going forward. The second topic is about what are the macro trends in our global economies and what implications that has for you to make money. So we go back to how to make money. And the third topic is this massive revolution we are having here. And this is really all about AI and service robotics and all of that technology that is really completely changing how service firms operate, how service firms market, and how service firms serve customers. So three quick topics here, and they're all part of our Executive MBA program. So let me kick off with a question for you. Can you think of three global service brands? And I've been running this workshop all over, and the brands that regularly pop up wherever you are the following. So it's Accenture, it's McDonald's, it's McKinsey, it is Amex, and so on. And what I would like you to sort of focus on a bit here is now, what do these brands have in common? And of course, they have a clear value proposition, clear brand image. Now, what do they have in common? And then you may say clear positioning, a brand, and so on. But there's one dimension that is so, how to say, most people don't think about it. Because these brands are so intertwined in our daily lives. And 9 out of 10 of my classes don't get this. But if you look, where are these brands from? Yeah? And you can see they're all from America. And that is quite unique. I mean, think about this. If I had asked you, give me great goods company, and then the ladies would have said Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Chanel, and the guys talk about Porsche and Mercedes and so on. So you can see goods companies come from all over the world, including FMCG like Unilever and Nestle. So what we have is good companies come from all over the world, but the minute you mention service, it is mostly American. There's a bit of tongue-in-cheek here, but tell me, what is it Americans can do the Germans and the Japanese cannot? Yeah? And so why? I mean, why is it that these companies are really so many successful global service businesses are from the US? And I mean, we can of course say many things. America has a huge market, is very customer oriented, is a very competitive space. But I mean, you could argue the same should apply to goods companies. By the way, I showed this chart here in Paris, and you can see Starbucks up here. And in France, do you know, the French they had tears in their eyes when they showed them this chart? You know why? What do you think French people think about American coffee? Where should a global coffee chain come from? Probably from Milan or from Vienna or from Paris, but not from America. And likewise, the global pizza chain is also not from Italy. It's also from America. Yeah? So you could see in America, people have taken what is of national pride of other countries and they productized it and they scaled it. Now, why did this happen from America and not from Italy, for example? And I think there's a deep-seated reason to this. In addition to being in a competitive space and in addition to having a large market and all of this, there's a deeper-seated cultural issue. Okay? So why? I mean, so what is so difficult here? Or why does a marketing orientation help? And to me, service is always a mix of art and science. You may know Howard Schultz, one of the founders of Starbucks. Where did he get this idea for Starbucks from? And it really came when he was having a holiday in Milan. And he was in a cafe in Milan and he observed what was going on there, the vibes he had. And he said, wow, this is so exciting. So what he found is that what people in Italy do in a cafe, they go and chill. So they have a few minutes of rejuvenation, if you will, of relaxation, of recharging. And so Howard Schultz sort of defined this, well, this is the third place. This is where we want Starbucks to be. Meaning, Starbucks is the place between screaming kids at home and screaming boss at the office, where you can then chill and recharge before you go from home to office or from office back to home. So it's this buffer here. So the art is really to sense these customer needs, to recognize it. And then the science comes, how do I hardwire this into processes, into training, into shop floor design, into products, into packaging, into pricing schedules. So the whole hardwiring of how do I package this experience and then are able to scale it. And this is really where American companies are good. They are able to take something like a Starbucks and then bring it to the world at the same quality level and at the same time have a really strong brand supporting this. Now, one challenge in services is always that you look at a Starbucks. Is there anything in there you couldn't copy? Tastes, packages, design, music, servicescape, any of those things. I mean, you can't copy one for one, but you can copy the idea, adapt it a little bit, and then you can run it. And if you think about it, there's really only one thing in the entire Starbucks here you cannot copy. What is that? Right? That is the brand. So in the end, it's really the brand that protects you from competition here in this case. So I just wanted to start off with this very, very simple sort of scenario to show you what are the challenges in a service business here and in scaling. And let me do a second question with you, a short exercise. Where are the opportunities for effective long-term differentiation? So this was a question asked to German engineering companies. So they're global leaders in one sort of niche, like in packaging or in printing or in bottling machinery. So they do all of this really high-tech gadgets they sell to other manufacturers. So they asked them, what are your opportunities for effective long-term differentiation? So before I go there, let us first nail this, determine this. What exactly is that? What is effective long-term differentiation? And if you look at it, differentiation means you're different. But how are you different? You're taller, you're faster, you're what? So different alone doesn't really mean anything here. It means effective differentiation, and effective means you're better. So you have to be better than competition. Now let me say better is subjective. Here from Singapore, I can fly to Beijing with Singapore Airlines suite class, beyond first class product. Or I can fly with Scoot, a low-cost carrier. So which one is better, right? And of course, it depends on who is the customer. And for me, if somebody else pays, I love the suite class, of course. Right? If I pay myself, then maybe I fly Scoot. Yeah, so better is subjective and depends on the eyes of the beholder. So it depends on your target customer segments, on your target segment. So basically, effective differentiation means you're better than competition in the eyes of your key target customers. They love you. Now, what does long-term mean? Yeah? Why wouldn't you be long-term better? And the thing is here that the minute you have a great idea and you gain traction in the market, and I've seen this many times. I was working with finance companies with credit cards. If one credit card has a really great idea with some new product feature and bundle, maybe a lifestyle card or a ladies card or something special, and if that gains traction in the market, what do you think the other banks will do? Do they wait for you to take their customers away? Of course not. Yeah? So I've seen within 2 weeks, I've seen new products being launched as a response to a successful new product introduction by a competitor. So within 2 weeks, they do what? They copy you. So long-term really means cannot be copied, takes a long time to copy, is illegal to copy, any of those things here. So the million-dollar question really for a sustainable long-term competitive advantage is you have stuff your customers love about you and competition cannot copy. If you have that, and if you're reasonably cost disciplined, you're making a ton of money. We call this above industry rate of return. Yeah, so you laugh all the way to the bank because if you're better than competition and they cannot copy it, then you have pricing power, so you can either charge a higher price and or you get a higher market share. So the million-dollar question, of course, now is where can you look for such a competitive advantage? Yeah, and you can see here these companies, they put price and cost at the bottom here. And why? How long does it take to copy a price? If you have a return on sales of 20% and a competitor cuts their return to 15%, how long does it take you to respond? And you can see if you cut from, let's say, return on sale 10%, you cut to 5%, that means what for you in terms of profitability, if nothing else changes, 10% return on sale dropping to 5% return on sale, that's a 5% price drop, but it halves your margin. Your profits go down by 50%. And on the other hand, if a customer doesn't like you at 100, do you think they love you at 95? Yes, unless you're a true commodity type of product, people will not be very impressed and it won't change anything. And it's a race to the bottom. So yes, of course, there's always the space maybe for one price leader for the industry. But I mean, for most companies, that's not really a strategic option. So what is better than price or cost for competitive advantage? And you can see here, what is my topic about? What do I teach in our executive MBA program? It is services marketing. And you can see here right at the top. Okay. Now price and cost are at the bottom here. So what is better than price or cost? And what I'm teaching for the NUS Executive MBA in Mandarin is really services marketing, services management. And you can see here at the chart that you have what we have at the top really is services. Now if I go to America, what do you think will be number one? And most likely is going to be branding. American companies are excellent in branding. That is what they focus on. Now, if you go to Silicon Valley, what do you think will be at the top? Silicon Valley is all about technology, innovation. So I'm not saying this list is cast in stone here, but I've seen so many companies, so many organizations, and what are the typical top three is service, branding, innovation. So if you hunt for a competitive advantage, these are sort of three things to focus on. Now, what does it mean that service is on top? It means, number one, customers love service. And number two, good service is hard to copy. That's what that means, right? If it's a good differentiator, your customers love it, and it is hard to copy. Now, why is service so hard to copy? And I mean, there are many reasons for this, but let me share sort of three things which sort of in my experience really matter a lot. The first one is people deliver service. So it's all about people, it's all about your culture. It is having the right people and the right skills and the right training and the right culture and all of that. And that takes forever to copy. I can't copy people, I can't copy culture. And I still remember when the Middle Eastern carrier started up, they hunted for how, and they follow the same business model as Singapore Airlines, which is one of the best full-service airlines in the world. So they wanted to follow that footstep, and out of the Middle East, they have a fantastic time zone and platform for large global carriers, and they were very successful. But when they started up, guess where they found their key executives from to help them build the right culture? About half of their management team was headhunted from Singapore Airlines. And from Singapore Airlines, I mean, in Singapore, if you're 50 years old, your kids are out of school almost already, and somebody offers you a bungalow with a pool and no taxes in Dubai, why not? For a few years before retirement, you know? So it takes time to copy a culture. That's number one. Number two, at Singapore Airlines, we did a lot of research with them. We wrote 2 books and a Harvard Business Review article. And the one thing they tell you is always, we're not trying to be 100% better in any one process. What we're trying to do is, it's a web of processes, hundreds of processes that come together for an aircraft to take off. So what we are trying to do is really, we are trying to be a little bit better in every single process we do, and the outcome is what? Is a tangibly better customer experience. And how do you copy a web of processes that is IT supported and all of this? It's incredibly difficult. So it's people, it's processes. The last one is not so obvious, but very, very, very important in many services. So let me give you a mini case study here. This is a company from my hometown. They do glass Christmas tree decoration. So let me ask you, is this a product or service? It's obvious, is a product, right? Now, is it a simple or complex product? And it's obviously one of the simplest products you possibly can think of. Now, this company was in deep trouble. Their sales went south. So this was their sales here. It really went down. And why? The EU admitted Eastern European countries, and they have very high quality, low cost glass industry. So they were flooding the EU. And this company here just went down and down and down. It was a second generation, father and son, both engineers who ran this company. Now, if I say service is a good differentiator, what services can you offer? Yeah, so we can have in my class, I usually have a long discussion on this one here. But people come up with ideas such as decorate Christmas trees. I just say, look, if you want to do just Germany, you have to decorate 40 million trees between the 1st and 20th of December. Can you imagine the logistics? What's the willingness to pay? And it's quite fun putting up the Christmas tree anyway. Yeah? So we were talking a lot here, and there were some interesting ideas. Maybe you can customize it. So you upload a photo of the family here, and then you write something like, we love you, Grandma, Merry Christmas, and you send it to Grandma with a picture on it. Yeah? So there are some of those ideas, and all of them, yes, they're nice, and of course they probably cost a lot of money, to the printing and then shipping it and all of this. But the really breakthrough idea was not the B2C story here. So it wasn't doing stuff for the end consumer. They did things like branding, printing the story of the Christmas tree on the boxes, and all of those things. But the real breakthrough came when they said, who is my customer? Which is the first question in marketing always. Who is my customer? Who buys from me? And it's actually not the end user who buys from me. It is the channel members who buy from me. It's the large departmental store chains, the large wholesalers that buy from me. So it's Takashimaya who buys from me for their global shops all over the world. Now, when you say it is a simple product, the catalog of this company is about that thick. So there are tons and tons of they call it collections. So when I looked at them, they had Hello Kitty, they had Disney. I'm sure there's Ice Princess, there is Mulan, Whenever there's a movie release, you have an entire merchandise collection that comes with it here. And I just downloaded a few here from the website. You can see here the Royal Blue collection, the Rust Ivory collection, the Magic Orange collection, the Christmas Garden collection. And this goes on and on and on. So if you are the procurement manager of Takashimaya, how much do you think you know about Christmas tree decoration? Yeah? And you look after so many different SKUs. You probably do Chinese New Year and Halloween, and here in Singapore Deepawali, and you name it. And you have many other product lines. So most likely you don't know a lot about Christmas tree decoration. So the question is, can I, as a manufacturer of this, do I know Christmas? Can I help you? And absolutely, right? I think, dream, talk, work Christmas 365 days a year. That's all I do. So they built decision support systems, AI systems, so it's on a notebook, and for the entire chain for Takashimaya, let's say all over Europe, they can tell you exactly historical sales they've had, number one. And the number two, they will talk with you and ask you, for each shop, did you increase, decrease the floor space? So I'm asking you, so what are the trends in your customer base? Are they getting richer, younger, different nationalities, and so on? And so this is the first key thing. And then the only other thing they do is, and this is kind of cute, how do they know already in March, April, May, what will be hot for Christmas this year? Forget about doing market research, because your customers can't tell you. Nobody can tell you now what they like for Christmas. So they were quite smart. What they figured out, the highest correlation with what is going to be hot at Christmas were two things. Number one, fashion shows. So in spring, you have the autumn fashion shows. So you can already see what are the colors, what are the patterns, what are the themes. Is it big and bold, small and intricate? Is it black and white? Is it pastel colors? Is it earthen colors? And so it's the fashion here. And what are the materials? And then the other is actually Hollywood. What are the movies that are going to be released over Christmas? So these two together with the decision support system, I come out, I tell the retailer exactly buy 500,000 Christmas garden collection. So are you happy as a retailer? Yeah? I mean, of course, the risk is, I mean, for example, I'm telling you, economy will pick up dramatically by Christmas, so we are expecting a 15% increase in sale. So what is your risk if I'm wrong? You're heavily overstocked. So of course retailers ask, help me, give me consignment or cover the risk. So consignment doesn't work for this company because they only sell once a year for Christmas. Already the banks don't like them, yes. But sharing the risk is something they've done. They said, look, you know, whatever you haven't sold by the 24th of December, we will cut our price to you by 50%, and you can cut your price to the end user by 50%. So that means for the retailer, they sell at a lower dollar level, but the margin they have, if they only cut by 50%, is the same as before. They could even cut by 75%, and that means they're selling at cost. As a manufacturer, if I give you 50% discount, it also means I'm selling above cost. So you can see we are sharing the pain at the end here for excess inventory, but the advantage is, think about it, do I rather overstock you a little bit or understock you a little bit? And of course, if I understock you, you're running out of stock. But if I overstock you, you and I, we both make maximum contribution until the last day of Christmas, and then afterwards we sell at cost. So we are maximizing the profits in our combined supply chain here. Right? So I help you to understand what to buy. I share the risk with you. Now, what other problems does my retailer have? Of course, every retailer, what's the shop floor design for Christmas? Yeah? And I as a manufacturer, the whole year I can think on how to display Christmas. And I have economies of scale. I can produce the stuff at a much lower cost than you can. So if you're a really big customer, I give it to you for free. If you're a small customer, then I charge you a cost for it. And the other thing they added to this was really a short 5-10 minute video for staff on what is this year's Christmas theme, how to sell Christmas. So what did this do? So what happened here is, rather than telling you buy one of these Christmas tree balls from me for 20 cents, I tell you, come to me and you will maximize your dollars per square foot in the pre-Christmas season. So you maximize your contribution in the pre-Christmas season per square foot retail space. That's my value proposition to you. Come to me, you look great, you have the right merchandise mix, and you make a lot of sales. And this proved to be such a powerful value proposition that they became the world's largest Christmas tree manufacturer, a Christmas tree decoration manufacturer here. And the guy who told the story, he always said, and here is when I joined the company. He was the first marketing person in this company and came up with completely redeveloping this value proposition. Now this company today doesn't exist anymore because what happened is they were taken over by an American company, and that integrated even more, that added Christmas trees, lighting chains and cards and everything. And now what you have is a container of Christmas tree stuff hitting the individual shop, and you open it up and everything you need for the Christmas season is in this container. So it's no more problem, complete problem resolution here for the retailer. This was a very simple story. But I can tell you every single manufacturer in the world is going on this journey, moving towards more service. And one of my favorite case studies is Rolls-Royce, Power by the Hour, aircraft engines. For them it was a 50-year journey from moving from manufacturing and selling or leasing engines to their customers to today, where they actually operate the engine on their customers' aircraft. So these engines are owned and operated with all the risks attached to it by Rolls-Royce. So why in the world would Rolls-Royce do that? And I can tell you, if Rolls-Royce, they also do their own analysis. So what they have seen is for $1 engine sales, there's another $7 in terms of repair and maintenance revenue during the lifetime of an engine. And what happened was that Rolls-Royce, of course, is probably the most expensive repair and maintenance company for Rolls-Royce engines, because they're also the experts here. But what happened in the market is the engine may have a warranty, let's say 3 years. So during these three years, it is Rolls-Royce servicing the engine, but the minute the warranty is over, they go to a low-cost competitor. And there are many. I mean, in China has built up a huge capacity for aircraft maintenance and repair. It's huge. The costs are 40, 50, 60% below Rolls-Royce. And likewise, you can go to Russia, you can go to Mexico. They're a fraction of the cost that Rolls-Royce charges. And you may argue, is there a quality difference? No, there is not really, because the repair and maintenance of engines is so tightly regulated that everyone is virtually doing the same. So Rolls-Royce was losing all of this revenue, but now with Power by the Hour, where this is their engine, they get this lifetime revenue for the engine here. Now you may argue or ask, why in the world are airlines okay with that? Why is, let's say, Singapore Airlines, I always teach in my class, is one of the stingiest airlines in the world. They're one of the best in terms of service quality, but they're one of the highest in terms of productivity. So they really look at every penny they spend, and they use Power by the Hour. 80% of Rolls-Royce's sales today of engines are Power by the Hour. So what is in for the airlines? And a very simple story here. Let's say I fly from Singapore to Los Angeles, and lightning hits my engine. So in the old days, pilot radios to LA, oh, we had a lightning strike, can you inform Rolls-Royce? So Rolls-Royce waits at the tarmac when the aircraft touches down, does diagnostic. Most of the time, no problem. Sometimes a part needs to be replaced, a fuse is blown or something. And then what happens is, there may be a short delay for the next flight, so 2, 3, 4 hours delay. But what happens sometimes, although very rarely, is that the engine has to be taken out of service. There's a major problem, the aircraft has to be taken out of service. And now what the airline has to do, in just of having a 4-hour delay, which by the way is also expensive. If I have a 4-hour delay, I may miss interconnecting flights on the other end. So I have to, a lot of passengers to rebook them and so on and so forth, right? So there are also costs involved. I may have to give meal vouchers. So, but with a whole day delay, when I have to fly in a replacement aircraft, wow, I have 300-400 passengers, and I need to call a bus, call the hotel, have huge inconvenience, have to rebook all of these customers, especially when they are on interconnecting flights, or I have to put them onto competing airlines. So big hoo-ha, big cost. So that was the old days. Power by the Hour means what? So this is the first generation Power by the Hour. I will tell you the second generation in a second, but the first generation was basically, they have IoT, they have sensors, they have remote monitoring of the engine. So the engine is on the customer's aircraft, lightning strikes, a beam of data gets sent to Derby in the UK, where there are thousands of screens that monitor thousands of engines that are up in the air right now at any given moment of time. And so one engineer, the screen starts to dance red, so there's a problem here. Engineer goes in, says we had a lightning strike here, and they do remote diagnostic. And now 80-90% of the time the answer is, after checking, everything is okay. No one even has to look at the engine in Los Angeles. If there's a problem, however, what they now know is that we have the following problem, we need the following repair and parts and the following skill set. So they can tell Rolls-Royce exactly what needs to be done. So the right parts, the right skill set, a person with the right skill set is waiting on the tarmac. So with a bit of luck, there will be no delay anymore because it's faster. So you can see the savings for the airline. And the other is, even if remote diagnostic shows that this engine has to be taken out of service, I now know 8 hours before arrival that I need a replacement aircraft. So already now am I sourcing for a replacement aircraft. That means rather than having to send people home and pay for a hotel, I give them a meal voucher and ask them wait for 4 hours, 6 hours at the airport. The replacement aircraft will be here. So I hope you can see the value for the airline here. This was the first generation of power by the hour. Now the second generation is even more sophisticated. So what I have now, I have pilots, and there's a warning light blinking, there's something wrong with the engine. So in the old days, what does a pilot do when there's a warning light and he doesn't know what it's about? You don't fly, safety first, right? Always. So can you imagine, so pilot doesn't take off, you have the aircraft full of people, imagine the cost and inconvenience and all of this again, until they checked exactly what is the problem here. Now with power by the hour, the pilot has the engine on his iPad. So you can see there's this warning light here. He clicks through. What's the cause of it? He goes all the way until he sees, wow, there's an oil pump that is deteriorating much faster than it should. It should run for 20,000 flight hours, and now after 10,000 flight hours already, there's only 600 flight hours left. So there's a problem with this oil pump. But the key message here is there's another 600 flight hours left. What does that tell you? I can fly Singapore, Los Angeles, which takes me 18 hours now. So I'm not shutting down the aircraft. I make an informed decision that it is safe to fly, and I'm saving a ton of money for the airline. And at the same time, what is part of this new package is I know I need to change this oil pump here in the next whatever hours. So I now can ask for a service request. And let's say it takes 4 hours to do this repair. At any layover that is more than, let's say, 6 or 7 hours now, I can schedule the repair by Rolls-Royce. So do you see the value proposition to the airline? Your asset that's worth $250 million will work harder for you. It will spend a lot less time at the repair. And I will fly a lot more. So I just want to show you, this was of course, a much more complicated story than the last Christmas tree decoration here, but the same principle. But there are fundamental changes also on the Rolls-Royce story here. I mean, number one, I get the revenue. Number two, can my competitors copy this service? And think about this. To be able to do power by the hour, where do you have to have repair facilities, engineers, and spare parts? So if you want to service Air China, where do you have to be? Everywhere where Air China flies, right? If you want to service Singapore Airlines, where do you have to be? Wherever Singapore Airlines flies. And the same is for United and Air France. So who only has a global network and is almost at every single major airport? And it's actually only maybe 3 companies as Rolls-Royce, GE, and Pratt & Whitney. So the 3 global manufacturers here. And all the others are much more regional. So let's say for a Chinese competitor to enter the market, they probably will do this in stages. So first you offer power by the hour type service for domestic Chinese flights. So you can be in all the Chinese airports. Then the next step is you go regional, you cover Asia. And the next step is you cover the world. But I hope you can see you have to build the volume, because if you only have one flight from Air China into a particular airport, you can't have parts and engineers to service this one flight. It doesn't work. You need to have volume and liquidity. Again, you can see here, this volume and the installed base Rolls-Royce has protects it probably for another few decades from other competitors who come up from elsewhere from the world. That's number one, the competitive advantage. Number two has to do with the culture and outlook of the organization. So in the old days, if Rolls-Royce has a customer and there's a problem with the engine, and the engine is not covered by warranty anymore, so there's a repair, is that good or bad for Rolls-Royce? Yeah? I mean, never mind long term. Long term is bad if your engines are not reliable. But short term, what happens here is that this customer has to pay for spare parts and for labor, for the repair, and that's revenue. And parts are very profitable. So actually, for the customer is a problem, but for you it is revenue as Rolls-Royce here. So that's the old model. The new model is power by the hour. So you run the engine. If there is a problem, the customer will just tell you fix it. And actually, if the aircraft gets grounded because of your engine, you are liable for compensation. So it's huge risk, and all the cost of repairs are on you. So can you imagine each time the engineers are going to redesign, improve, or develop a new engine, you can be sure they run a Pareto analysis. But you can see here, you start here, if you want to really move into solutions, it's a long journey, it's not fast. And the direct going from some basics to running solutions, that one, I've not seen a single company succeeding with it. What companies typically do is they first master product lifecycle services. And that's everything from consultation, specification, installation, training, integration, optimizing processes of machines. That's the basics. If you do that really well, you can then move one way up to asset productivity services. You can say, I'm guaranteeing you 99.5% uptime. So I'm guaranteeing you this machine will work. And you can see the whole focus now shifts. In the old days, I charge you for the machine, I may charge you for certain parts of consultation and so on. But now I hope you can see the price for a 99.5% uptime versus a 99.99% uptime versus a 95% uptime will be very different. You're now paying for this guarantee. And for me, it means as provider of this service here, I need to be very much on my toes. The higher the level of guarantee is, and that's where a lot of things come on board, like IoT and sensors and remote diagnostic, preventive sort of repair and maintenance, these kinds of services. Now, if you do this really well, you can also go here, you focus on the process of the customer. Meaning, now you go into the customer site, and let's say if you're an aircon company and you want to help the customer, how do you optimize air quality, air temperature, and minimize electricity bills? So you go in and have a look, what can you do? You can put a filter on the windows, where you put the aircon in the room, how often you clean and maintain. Do you have sensors that shut off the aircon if there are no people in the room, and so on and so forth. So you do all of this really well. So you really understand how to run your machines as very high reliability. You really understand customer service processes. Now you can go into the customer and say, let me do it. And they're beautiful examples. We had Rolls-Royce. So we just finished the micro story to see what companies should do to make money in the service economy. So we looked at an individual company on how to use service to build long-term competitive advantage. Now let's look at the macro story. So what's happening in our economies? And what you see here is the American economy. You can see it was 150 years ago, 2 out of 3 people worked in agriculture, and today is almost no one. And you can see manufacturing peaked in 1945 here, and why you can guess this was the end of World War II when the war machinery stopped. Since then, manufacturing has been going down. And you can see service has been increasing all the time. So the question is, in the future, will we all be in service? Don't know whether you can guess these 3 sectors. The first is the biggest service sector and the biggest sector in most countries in this world, that's healthcare. So in a rich country, people want to live longer, want to be beautiful for longer. So there's a never-ending amount of money you can spend on healthcare. In a poor country, it's the same thing. The first and last dollar people have, they spend on helping loved ones, children, parents, siblings with healthcare expenses. So healthcare is growing everywhere. The second is what you are doing here. is education. Education is growing everywhere. In the developed economies, it is lifelong learning, lifelong education. You always have to be in training and learning. And in poor countries, people know the only way out of poverty is education. So education is growing everywhere. And the third one is leisure, hospitality, and travel. The minute people have enough to eat and have clothes and have housing, they want to see the world. They want to enjoy. So we talk about the experience economy. Yeah? We're not so much into gadgets and goods anymore. We want to experience stuff. And that is in the service sector here, the leisure sector. Now, what you've seen here, these sectors I was talking about, they're all in what we call B2C. And now the interesting thing is the B2C sector in America, the service sector, has not increased. Because for every new job that was generated in education, healthcare, and hospitality, jobs in retailing and insurance and banking and telco were cut. So if that growth of the service sector is not in B2C, it must be in B2B. And that is the real story of the service sector. Here, let me show you a value chain. So if I have a value chain like BMW or Haier or one of these companies, so what is happening is they start outsourcing. You outsource customer contact, you outsource IT, you outsource supply chain, you outsource ownership of management of facilities, and so on. Yeah. So what is left if we outsource and outsource? And I mean, my friend, he works with BMW. I tease him a bit. I say, look, if I look at a BMW, all the stuff you see is not from BMW. The ABS, the battery, the entertainment system, the seats, the tires, the rims, everything is bought together. So what is your core competency as BMW? Even engine, right? I mean, they said in the past, engine is our core competency. The minute you're in electrical engines, they're almost all the same. They all go from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3-4 seconds. It's just, it's no secret anymore how to do this. So if you really drill it down, if you push BMW very hard, what they have is what? The brand. So BMW as a brand has still value. And the other is the design of the car. So the design from a looks point of view looks great, and also touch and feel is high quality. And the third part of the design is they're designing the total car, and that means they're co-creating, co-designing, co-inventing with all of their vendors to build a high-performance car that is fun to drive. Yeah? But you can see a lot of it is outsourced. And I always use Tesla as an example here. How could Tesla become so successful? And it wouldn't have been possible 50 years ago. And why? Very simple. I mean, Tesla a few years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, they had a revenue of $13 billion US. And that is less money than each of their big competitors have R&D budgets. So General Motors, Toyota, Volkswagen have a bigger budget than Tesla had in revenue. And yet Tesla out-innovated many of the large companies. How? And you think about it, and this is really the secret here, is the value chain exploded and Tesla innovated in one cell of this value chain. So they innovated on the engine, so they replaced a complicated engine with a simple engine. They took out the gearbox and added a battery, but everything else, they still had to buy tires and rims and brakes. And where did they get this kind of stuff from? From the same vendors General Motors and Ford and Toyota buy from. So the challenge is, if you have a value chain that is exploded, and there are many vendors offering different parts of the value chain, any new entrant can come in, innovate in one cell of this value chain, and reconfigure and buy in the rest. And you're in business. And that's really the power of Silicon Valley. All I need in Silicon Valley to start up is what? I need an idea and I need money. Everything else I can outsource. Web design, app design, hosting, call center, fulfillment. I don't need to own any of this. All I need to really own is the idea, the business model, the brand, the customer base, and that is it. So you can see there is a real challenge here for the traditional legacy providers on how to make money here, how not to be disrupted. Now, let me show you a very simple value chain analysis. Because if our value chains are exploding, it has big impact on us as a business. Here, let me give you a very simple example. Let's say I am Nike sneakers. I sell them here to keep the story simple. I sell them at $100 in Manhattan in New York. At what price do I buy these sneakers? So I say I buy them at $40. So the retailer takes $60 gross margin. So $40 left, how much goes to Nike? So what does Nike do? Branding, advertising, design and R&D. They orchestrate the supply chain. So $40 left. So out of these $40, most likely $30 go to Nike. So how much goes to inbound and outbound logistics, manufactured in Vietnam, consumed in Manhattan? Yeah? So the logistics is container shipping, so it's maybe low single digits, so maybe 2-3%. How much goes into manufacturing? And you can see it's almost nothing left, right? It's like maybe 7%, 8%. So the question is, why is value captured this way? 90% of the value is captured by these two players here. Why? And you can see if I am Nike and I bring in a brand new MBA into my company who does a value chain analysis, and that MBA will say, wow, this bugger retailer takes 60% of the value. It's my brand, my idea, my marketing, and so on. So what they will try and do at the next World Cup or the next Olympics, they will come up with a really new hot range of shoes with fantastic online endorsement, now by celebrities from all over the world and great social media and so on and so forth. And then they will come to the retailer. Sales promoter becomes some electronic board or poster. And who goes in front to the entrance to meet us and so on? A good brand that gives me the margin I want. So it could be Under Armour or New Balance or whatever. Yeah? There are other good brands there I can bring in and put in the front. So what does the retailer own? This is, he owns the point of sale. And the other is, I may come to you in the shop and say, I need a good pair of running shoes for hard surface. What do you recommend? Yeah? So in the retailer, they're going to sell the brand with the highest margin. So they tailor a solution to your problem at a high margin. So they own two things here, the retailer, point of sale, and they own the customer relationship. And this is very powerful. I don't really care whether this point of sale is a physical shop or is a website like TripAdvisor or is an app. It doesn't matter. It's wherever your customer is and makes a buying decision. If you own that, you can make a lot of money. Now, what does Nike own? So the retailer buys these shoes from Nike for $40, but the retailer could go to Vietnam, same factory or neighboring factory, same goods, same air and everything, almost same design, yes, and buy these shoes for $15. So why doesn't the retailer do this? Well, you can only buy Nike from Nike. So if you go to these other markets here, other manufacturers, these are some real brands here that exist. I mean, you can buy a Hikey, you can buy a Likey, and so on. You can see there are many different brands out there, but they are not Nike. So the question is, what is the easiest sale if you want $60 gross margin? You can buy Hikey at $15 and sell Hikey at $75, Or you can buy Nike at 40 and sell Nike at 100. And I promise you, no one in Manhattan in a top-notch sports goods shop will buy Nike for 75. So Nike owns the brand. Now, how do you sell inbound, outbound logistics? You want to sell to Nike, I'm running your logistics. And typically, how do you do this? Well, it's a beauty show, it's a request for proposal, shortlisting, and the best firms are invited to present. And the selling typically is, first, you try and say, I am better, whatever that means. Shorter transit times, track and trace, and many other things you do better than competition. So if you're better, really better, you're offering greater value, you have some pricing power. Now guess what? What if even the price is largely the same, which happens to be in these commodity type markets? Well, then you buy from your friend. So you sell over relationships. So you can see here is a much more tighter sale here. First you have to be better. If that doesn't work, you have to be cheaper. If that doesn't have to work, you have to be my friend. And manufacturing is the same thing. Look, if you increase your, if you have a long-term relationship, I've been buying shoes from you for 20 years, so you have been my manufacturer, and now I'm the procurement manager, I get a new proposal on my desk, and they promise me 20% cut because it's a completely automated, with the robotics and so on, shoe manufacturing company here. What will I do? Yeah? So if you have a good relationship, can I ignore this proposal? Of course not. My KPI as procurement manager is cut cost. But if we have a good relationship, I will tell you, look, hey, I got this proposal here. I'd love to stay with you. Can you match? So maybe you don't have match dollar for dollar because I know you, you're a trusted entity, but you will have to bring your costs down to maybe you get a 3% premium over what this new company is offering here. But you can show you the tough spot you are in. So this is what happens when the value chain explodes. What should you own to be able to extract value here? And you can see there are a few points we discussed. You can own the point of sale. You can own the customer relationship. That's great. You can own the brand. And that is a great bargaining chip. We discussed earlier, sometimes if volume, liquidity, infrastructure matter, we have this up here, you have the company infrastructure, you own that. Sometimes if there is IP, intellectual property, although in most services we don't have a lot, most of the stuff we have can be copied, but if you have fantastic, own that. So I'm not telling you do this or do that. What I'm telling you is our economies are going to become so much more competitive that you yourself have to think very, very carefully for your business. What is it I should own to be able to extract value in the future? So we just discussed on what you should own to be able to extract value in the service economy. Let me go to the third part of my presentation, which really talks about this massive rapid change we have in our economies right now through intelligent automation, AI, service robots. And I strongly feel that we are in what I call the service revolution today. What do I mean by this? In 50 years from now or 100 years from now, we will look back and say, wow, this is when the service revolution happened. So what do I mean? Everything is coming together right now. The technology we have is getting faster, cheaper, better almost by the month. So whether we talk about drones or autonomous driving or biometrics or cloud technologies, mobile technologies, geo-mapping, algorithms, AI, machine learning, natural language processing, and so on, everything is coming together and is getting better and better and better. And we had the last revolution was the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century. And what the Industrial Revolution did, it did the same for manufactured goods. So the outcome was that before the Industrial Revolution, a lady maybe bought one handbag in her life and had to save for months and months and months of money to buy that one handbag. After the Industrial Revolution, you can buy a handbag every month if you want. Why? The quality is good and the price is low, and we have to work only a few hours to buy this good. So the Industrial Revolution has given us high quality, mass manufactured goods at a low price that massively increased our standard of living. Of course, we still have the handcrafted handbags, right? We have got Hermes and Louis Vuitton, and you still pay months of salary to buying them. But that's the luxury market now. The mass market is cheap and good. And the service sector now, with all of these technologies, goes exactly into the same direction. That we will have mass manufactured services here that will be another massive boost of our standard of living. There are many services today that are very expensive and many people can't really afford, although they would love. There's an insatiable demand for many of them. And that includes education, that includes healthcare, and many other services that are just currently very expensive because they're almost handcrafted by people, hand-delivered. So going forward, many of those will be industrialized services, and where the handcrafted and people-delivered part becomes very, very expensive. And this will relatively expensive, yeah. But this will be will revolutionize and disrupt industry after industry after industry, including education. I'm convinced about this. Now, when we talk about service robots, intelligent automation, with this, I don't mean one technology. Typically, we talk about end-to-end customer service processes that are fully automated and fully scalable, and they usually involve a number of technologies. It's never one technology. Yeah? You need computer vision. I have to do facial recognition. I have to read documents. So it's just putting stuff into the computer. Yeah? There is language. So yes, I can read a document, but what is the meaning of that document? So this is sort of natural language processing so that the computer derives meaning from this. The next is really execution. So if you do stuff, right? I want to open an account. I want to have a credit card. So the service process has to include activation of issuing of a credit card and shipping that credit card, for example. So this is robotic process automation, but could also be service robots. And the last one is really learning and analysis. So the whole of machine learning and improvement and analysis. So it's a whole set of technologies. And to me, the exciting part, there are really two things. When you talk about service robots, people always imagine a physical robot standing at the store and greeting you. And yes, this will come. Yes, we will have retail solutions and restaurant solutions for many of these services. And you've seen in hotels that robots bring your baggage to the room. Robots deliver room service to the room. And for all of this, yes, you need a physical robot. And that part is coming, but more slowly. The real current service revolution is in what we call intangible services. That means where I don't have to move physical stuff. You want to transfer money, you want to make a call, you want to get some investment advice, you want to know when a shop is open. So this is all information type services. And that is where currently the fastest advance is being made. At the moment, the fastest shrinking job category in America is retail assistants. And why? Because people buy from e-commerce and Amazon, and you don't need a shop assistant anymore. But what is really gathering pace right now is call center automation. So soon, and just in America alone, there are millions of call center agents employed in call centers here. Many of them will go. And why? Chatbots, virtual agents are just getting so powerful now that for the most standard stuff, you don't need a call center agent anymore. Yes, you just answer on the phone. And you just have a chatbot. And here we call about democratization of technology, meaning everyone can use it. Of course, call centers is obvious, but think about even services companies like hospitals, hotels, airports. They all have information desks. So Changi Airport in Singapore, they're always very proud to be one of the best airports in this world. And they have, at every terminal, at every floor, is one information counter at the center. It's expensive real estate. And payroll is high, staff costs are high in Singapore. So it's an expensive thing to do, and it's not even convenient for passengers because it's at the center of the airport. You may be at the other end. There's no one to ask. I promise you, in a few years from now, every 50 meters there will be a holograph at Changi Airport. Will be beamed from the ceiling, a nice gentleman or a nice lady being beamed there. All you need is a beamer, a microphone, a speaker. So very low cost in terms of per unit. The cost is in the development of it. And, but then it can be scaled. And these will be global solutions providers who will develop such solutions for airports and then just customize for your airport. And these beamed customer service holograph agents, they will speak all common languages. So you can speak Mandarin, you can speak Bahasa, you can speak English, you can speak Spanish. Yeah? They know all the languages, and they know all the basic questions. Where is check-in for Air China? Where is tax rebate? Where is the toilet? Where is passport control? Yeah? So I hope you can see where we are going here. And there's a big implication here. So some people tell me, what about competitive advantage? And here I have to tell you, most likely it will be like ATMs for banks. ATMs are the most efficient way to dispense cash. But no bank develops their own ATM. These are ATM solutions providers who you buy from, and then of course you customize the interface, the touch and feel and the colors and the logo and the services you have. But the core technology is from a solutions provider, and every one of your competitors can buy exactly the same. So that means the hunting for competitive advantage will be even more difficult to do because everyone has the same ATM, everyone will have the same retail solution, information solution, and so on. So the big thing here is really, yes, robotics, AI, and service robots will really revolutionize service, but it will go in two stages. The really rapid thing is anything to do with information where I don't have to move physical stuff. And what is happening in parallel, but a little bit slower, is physical robots doing things. Your autonomous taxi is still going to take a few years. The autonomous waiter in a restaurant serving you. Or the hairdresser, the hair salon with a smart mirror where you sit in front and you can click through the different types of hairstyles you can get with your head shape and your hairstyle. And the robot will then start the cutting. That will still take a little bit longer, but not too much longer either. So that's sort of the one key thing. Is it a tangible service or intangible service? And the other key dimension is, what is the underlying service value proposition here? Is that really emotional, social here, what you're doing for customers? Or is it cognitive, analytical? And you can see if it is cognitive, analytical, service robots will be able to do almost any level of complexity here. Robo-advisors for investments, for architects, for insurance, yeah? Or very simple stuff here, buying tickets and so on. Of course, people will tell me, what about the human touch? Yeah, I mean, if everything is done by robots, but then I always ask these people, so you really value the human touch, right? So when was the last time you cashed money inside a bank from a human teller and not from the ATM? Here in Singapore, it's only for Chinese New Year when you need new notes. Yeah. Other than this, you never go inside. And if the banks are also smart here in Singapore, they put the new notes into the ATM. Yeah, because the banks also don't want to see you inside cashing money. It's too expensive. They rather have higher value businesses for their branches. So the ATM, if you want cash, is still the most efficient way, as everywhere is 24 hours, is fast. And the same thing is, look, you don't want to talk to a call center agent if you have to wait and so on. If there's an efficient chatbot that does, you call this and you're answered by a digital agency, a digital service provider, you're very happy, most of us, yeah? Okay, so that's the cognitive analytical here. So what about if it is emotional and social, very complex? And this is really where we still will need people, because robots don't have agencies, robots can't really feel emotions. They can show basic emotions, so they display happiness or sadness. They can mimic your emotions. We call this surface acting, but they don't really feel it. Let me just look at a few key takeaways. So this was a master class and a sort of a snapshot of what I do in my executive MBA class in the Mandarin program here. And so we really covered three things here. The first one, we looked at going forward in a modern service economy. How do I develop a competitive advantage? And we really said, for many companies, it is moving into services and moving into solutions, because customers tend to love service, and service is hard to copy. And we had a few case examples there, including the Rolls-Royce Power by the Hour. The second topic was, look, where we are going with our economies is the service sector is growing more and more, and that is not so much due to B2C, but is all in the B2B space. What's happening is our value chains are exploding. And that means it becomes easier and easier for others to enter and disrupt, because they just can buy all of these components from the value chain, innovate in one cell of this here, and be in business. And this is really what we discussed on Silicon Valley here. And we discussed, given that where we are going here, how can you control value and how can you extract value from the value chain in these modern economies? We had sort of a few pointers. You should own, if possible, point of sale, customer relationship, and or the brand, and or if volume and installed base and liquidity matter, you own that. And or if there is significant intellectual property, IP here, that you should own. Although IP in general, we discussed, is not so much in service. The thing is, I don't want to tell you what to own. All I'm telling you is, think very carefully about your strategy, where you are, and what you should develop to be able to extract value. And the third topic I covered was this massive service revolution we're experiencing now with analytics and AI and service robots, and how that is completely changing, again, the way we will deliver service going forward. So I really hope you enjoyed this masterclass, and I would love to see you in our Executive MBA in Mandarin here at the National University of Singapore. Thank you.